Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I just like to post my drawings. That's about it. I've also posted a link to the Marvel database that has plot synopsis and character bios for this. We're going to be looking at Amazing Spider-Man 304 from 1988, drawn by Todd McFarlane. Now, he does do the art on the cover, but inside, he's actually just a penciler. Joseph Rubinstein will be his inker. During this time, Spider-Man went twice during the summer, so he wasn't able to kind of keep up. It does affect him toward the end of his Amazing Spider-Man run. It just didn't work very well. So, I have a playlist for all things Todd McFarlane. So, I have covered from 314 all the way to the end of his Amazing Spider-Man run. I covered his Spider-Man single run. Then I decided to go back to the beginning because there just is not too much Todd McFarlane available out there. I've covered his Invasion. I've covered Batman Year 2. And the only thing left is Spawn, and he only draws like the first 2 years. Todd McFarlane, although he is still around, is a toy maker. And I understand, I'm a capitalist. Hey, make your money. But still, man, I would love to see him friggin' draw. So, we're at the Daily Bugle, and we got this thing here called Webs. Spider-Man in Action, exclusive Daily Bugle photographs by Peter Parker. And he's like, I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. So we got our credits here. David Michelinie is the writer. McFarlane pencils. Joseph Rubinstein inks. California Schemin' is the name of our story, our title. So you can see here that he's improving on the webs. So issue by issue, the webs are getting more to what we're used to. How could you do this? I mean, how could you publish a book of my photos without even asking me, says Peter. And so he says, this guy here says they haven't. The book actually won't be won't be published for a while. But as for getting his permission, this lady here, Miss Greeley, she's from the legal staff. And she can explain it here. And she says basically the Daily Bugle owns all the pictures, which is technically true. And Jameson says, you should have read the fine print on the release forms you signed, Parker. We own your work, lock, stock, and negatives. So, but being a naturally generous nature, I might authorize a gratitude fee of, say, $100. And Peter's like, 100? Jameson. So Parker's like, what? You know, a book probably will generate a cover fee. So this guy says, you know, there's another way that he'll benefit. He'll go on tour, promote the book in major cities, and his expenses will be paid for. And in return for cooperations, he'll get partial royalty. If sales are high as he expects, he could earn as much as $25,000. And he's like, I don't have time to. And then he's like, $25,000. $25,000 is a lot of money, but in 1988, it was probably double that. It was probably like 50. Inflation is a bitch, I tell you. And of course, this guy says we'll also offer Spider-Man $1,000 for appearance fee. So, and Peter's like, wait a minute, do I look like Spider-Man's pal? And then there's a reference to Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen here. Do you think I can push a button on my watch and he'll come running like a trained puppy? So he says he doesn't know where Spider-Man is, and the only way he he was able to get Spider-Man because he worked his butt off to get those pictures. So he'll do the tour. He's going back to school. He could really use the money, but he'll do it alone. So Jameson says, we'll find Spider-Man. We'll run an ad in the help wanted for him at the corporate discount, of course. So Jameson wants to do anything for free. So, all right. So Peter Parker is going to change here. It's kind of funny now that you've seen McFarlane kind of ink himself from 300. So we've seen a few issues. What a difference does an inker make, doesn't it? Just kind of looks So Peter says he doesn't want Spider-Man around. You know, he always gets the spotlight, and it would be nice for Peter to get the spotlight for once. So nice pictures here of Spidey here. So he says how nice it'll be to kind of travel on somebody else's dime and see his name on a billboard or on stores, not on a billboard. So, all right. So these two had a bet, but they didn't shake on it. He's like, "I'm not gonna pay you." This guy pulls up a knife. Spider-Man then takes his web and takes the knife out. And he breaks the knife, and he's like, I was having such a nice day. Why spoil it with some frivolous, massive blood loss? He's like, man could have a point. Why? Why don't we stop by the bank, pal? I can get your $5 from the auto teller. So it was all just about $5. So, all right. And so at their new condo / apartment, whatever New York calls it, we call them condominiums in the Midwest, but I know that in New York they call them apartments. So I don't know, whichever. Or she's unpacked her winter coats and accessories. So all this in that huge closet. So, all right. So Peter shows up and kind of startles her. He's excited to tell her about the good news. So, and so he says that he's gonna be in Los Angeles in 2 weeks, and she's like, "Great, I haven't been to L.A. in a month." And he's like, "You're going along?" And she says, "Sure, unless you don't want me to." And he's like, "Gosh, no." This is when they had first gotten married, so they're kind of new here to this whole marriage thing. He's like, "Oh, I'm just getting used to being a new husband with her. I'd go all the way to the North Pole with you." So, all right. And so now we're in Queens at Aunt May's house, and Peter is dropping off that book to Aunt May. She's so proud of him. She goes, "You mean I can go to Kmart and I'll see people buying your book?" And Peter, your uncle would be so proud. So just like she is. So, and so Peter's glad that his aunt's happy, and how much they love each other. So now we're in Beverly Hills, and we see a figure kind of jumping through. We're starting to see McFarlane, of course, doing his very famous, although not quite as famous as Frank Miller, silhouette backgrounds and stuff like that. So we see someone kind of breaking in and walking in. So probably a cat burglar of some kind. So, of course, it is the Black Fox. I'm sorry, I stopped here kind of to admire here. You can see a little bit. When I draw, I use this a lot, just kind of like a dry brush method. I really enjoy it. So the Black Fox is going to stay in this place. Of course, he is just happy that Spider-Man won't be around. And they said that the last time they met was in Web of Spider-Man, which we have not covered at this time. Right now I'm concentrating on Amazing Spider-Man. I've got an Amazing Spider-Man playlist where I've been covering some stuff from the very beginning. And then I've got a Todd McFarlane kind of playlist. So I haven't merged the two yet, but we'll eventually kind of merge some of these McFarlane ones into um, the Amazing Spider-Man playlist. So he's looking for one final heist so he can get that place in the French Riviera. So he's having a some kind of moet, and he's like, Mr. and Mrs. Osgood are very good hosts who are currently vacationing in Geneva, and it seemed like such a waste for the exquisite estate to go so lonely and abandoned for 3 months. So, and so he calls the Beverly Hills police and says, "Hey, this is Osgood Hempstead. I neglected to mention that I'm having a guest stay at the house while he's away, a Mr. Fox, and to afford him every courtesy." Who the hell calls the police? All right. Like, why would they care? All right. And so Mary Jane's going through a checklist and drops her keys here, but they're caught here. It says, "Allow me," and he says, I'm Jonathan Caesar from down the hall. Get to know him. He'll be uh, involved in a storyline." So the Jonathan Caesar, as a man who owns this building, he's like, "I've admired your work for a long time, Miss Watson. Perhaps you'd honor me by having tea sometime." And Mary Jane says, "My husband and I would be delighted after we get back from California." So, he says, "Gotta rush. Cab waiting. See you when you get back." He says, "Yes, I'm sure you will." So, again, a future storyline. So, they're taking a private airplane to go to Los Angeles. I doubt that another corporation would give. They'd probably put him in first class, but there's no way they would get a private jet to fly Peter Parker for a friggin' book tour. So anyway, so they get to LAX, and then of course they're in a limousine. So she asks if they've been to California before, and Mary Jane's like, "Oh yeah, I posed for a magazine and a cover in Malibu a few months ago." And he said he was a while back, but he doesn't get to go there as much. So, and she is gonna be here, kind of helping Peter along. She works for the book place. So she's giving them their schedule, and says that there's nothing to on the agenda before that, and if there's anything they'd like to do this afternoon. And he's like, oh, he's got these eyes. He's like, oh no. And of course, he's like, "Listen, I'm as good a sport as the next gal, but so help me." He's all happy. So you guys can guess. They're at Disneyland. So she's like, "If you ask me to pose for Donald or Mickey," so went to Disneyland, and he's just having some fun. And so Mary Jane says, "All right, let's go get some ears for you." So later that night here, you can see Peter's in a tuxedo and she's wearing some kind of cool 80s dress. So they give their invitations, and he's like, "Wow, look at all the celebrity. Don't you wish you knew some of it?" And she's like, "Hey, Geraldo, saw your special last week." So, of course, this guy's like, "Caviar." He's like, "Fish eggs, huh?" He says, "Don't you have spam on a Ritz?" And look at Mary Jane. This guy's like Uncle Salt the chef. So, all right, so the Black Fox is there as well. So he needs to be there, but instead of busting through the window, he needs to go in, but he needs an invitation. Of course, he says, "Where there's a will, there's a way." So he bumps into this guy, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And so he walks in. He's like, "My invitation, it's gone, but I know I had it." And of course, the Black Fox took it. So he's like, "Champagne? No thanks." All right. So suddenly he sees, oh no, and he recognizes the Black Fox. So he's like, I'll be right back. And of course, she's mingling with all the, because this is her element. So I love this in the panels. I love it when there's no panels yet. You make a break. I try to do it as often as I can. So, all right. So here's the Black Fox here, and he's gotten rid of the security people, and he's gonna, of course, go steal one of these items, and touches this guy, and of course sprays him, and sees a guy with a gun, and he's hit with or sorry, he shoots, but it's a dart, so it's not really a thing. I love this when I do this also. When I try, if I have like guns go off, I do the same thing as McFarlane does. This is a very cool panel with the silhouette here. I wonder how McFarlane would have done inked that himself. So, all right. So he steals this chalice here, which is what he came for. He thinks with this he'll be able to finally retire at the French Riviera. Again, I love this with the dry brush. I know that it's not very McFarlane-y because he's not, of course, inking himself, but I like it. So, of course, Spider-Man's here, and he's like, what the heck? And so he's knocking all these so that Spider-Man gets it. He grabs this thinking it's expensive. He's, of course, made in Hong Kong, so he's like, this isn't fair. He's supposed to be in New York. I'm going to have to use my smoke blasters and get the heck out of here. And he's like, man, I'm too old for this. So he can't see, so he's going to hopefully follow him, use his spider sense, but realizes that as he gets through, that he walks in and everybody's here, and he's like, grah. And she's like, Mary Jane's like, I'd like to introduce you to the Spider-Man. And so um Peter, of course, is like, oh man. And she's like, play along. All right. And so he says hi to everybody. So he's about to go get the chalice, but he's you see here, he's go fire. He's like, police. He's like, not even close. The cops be after you, but I'm after the chalice. And right now, old timer, that fancy cup belongs to the Prowler. So thus we end our tale for today. Amazing Spider-Man number 304. David Michelinie, Todd McFarlane with Joseph Rubinstein with the inks. So, like and subscribe. I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.